Listening to the Hometown Losers, the St. Louis Sports Podcast, with Josh, Adam, and OJ.
Hey everybody, welcome back here to the Hometown Losers Podcast. This is session number 63, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Adam and OJ. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm good to be here. I'm glad I'm here. It's cold as hell, but I'm ready for some sports talk. How about you, OJ?
I'm doing great. Yeah, same. Cold weather lets me work from home because there's snow on the ground. So, had a good day and ready also for some talk now.
How much snow did you get out your way, OJ? Because I know we're all like kind of separated out. You're definitely a bit more north than where I'm at, and then obviously, Adam, you're more south of what I am. So,
yeah, I don't know. I didn't actually measure it. It wasn't very much, but it was enough to get the roads covered, and that's all. That's the only excuse I really need to not go in.
Right? Yeah.
There you go. I think we had about 4 inches here, maybe three or four.
Yeah, since I can do my entire job from home, it's just like, why,
Right. Yeah, I think the accumulation total here was 3 inches, but the actual, what would be standing like on your driveway, like without shoveling it, was like 2 inches, like barely 2 inches.
Monday's going to be in the 60s, so there you go.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yep. But it's crazy too because I was having this conversation with my girlfriend when all this stuff was coming in, because obviously they put us on a winter weather alert, and she's on iPhone and she's like, well, look at this. Like, it's showing that it's going to be like 8 to 9 inches of snow. And I'm like, well, Weather Channel shows 1 to 3. So and she's like, well, I guess they just don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, the Weather Channel has been right about all the other stuff. Cause remember that little flurry that we got not terribly too long ago, like last week, like the end of last week or whatever. And on the iPhone app, I don't even know what app it is. I don't know if it's like Apple Weather or whatever, but it said that we were supposed to get 6 to 7 inches, and we didn't even get an inch. It's like,
well, there you go.
Do they just
Apple
see
Weather
the radar and just think that it's just gonna, completely have snowmageddon every time it snows?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't know. This time, no one was really calling for a whole lot. So,
well, apparently, since iOS 16th, Apple uses their own internal forecast data. Before they used to use the Weather Channel. So there you go. So apparently, Apple's weather forecast is wrong.
Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah. I don't know. My thing about it is they didn't really treat the roads very well. Like, they kind of just what happens happens. So
they did not treat them at all here. They were just like,
they actually they issued a statement out here for the St. Charles, St. Peter's area that they would not be using county or city trucks to go through residential areas, because last time when we had, literally snowmageddon, when we had 12 inches, on the ground at one time, with that heavy snow dump, they were trying to get through residential areas and stuff like that, but they were kind of neglecting some roads. And so they're like, we're going to put all of our focus on the main roads, which honestly makes a lot more sense, and you appreciate it a little bit more. Luckily, I have a guy that's in my neighborhood who's a volunteer plower. And so he came through the entire neighborhood and did all that. And there wasn't that much, you know what I mean? So I have all-wheel drive. I was able to get out yesterday. Was able to get out today. It wasn't a big deal at all.
Yeah, I got out today as well. So
sweet.
All right, guys, we'll get off the weather here and let's talk a little bit about some sports here. So we don't really have St. Louis topics per se, but I definitely wanted to touch on the Four Nations, the tournament that is going on. This is an NHL sanctioned tournament, so it is kind of like a cross between the World Cup of hockey, what that used to be, and kind of like the Olympics in a sense, but it's only 4 nations. It is Finland, it is Sweden, it is Canada, and the United States. Obviously, all the games for the round robin happened. For anybody that has not been paying attention to this, essentially each team played the other 3 teams played a total of 3 games. If you won in regulation, you got 3 points. If you won in overtime, you got 2 points, while that team that lost in overtime would get 1 point. And obviously you get 0 for a loss. Very similar to kind of what they do in soccer, except they give they don't end in ties, which would obviously be just each team would split a point, right?
Right.
I liked that format a lot. I honestly kind of wish that the NHL would do that from now on, and maybe this is something to that they could look at. Coming later is like when you have regulation wins compared to overtime wins and losses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it would work better to have every game be worth 3 points total.
Yeah. And that's actually go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, like getting 2 points for a overtime win is still less than a regulation win. So basically both teams are incentivized to push at the end of the game, no matter what, to try and get the extra point. So,
exactly. So, and this goes back to like one of our old coworkers, Adam, what he said a long time ago, big hockey guy, and Robert, when he said that, I don't like how when overtime loss, they give him 1 point while the win is still 2 points. You all of a sudden go from 2 point game, and because they went to overtime, now it's a 3 point game. And I think this makes more sense because now, to your point, OJ, it gives the push to teams would definitely go out of their way to try to rescue that point, take a point away from them too. And it would put more emphasis on the team to hold off to not allow a goal to go in for overtime and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because, if you let it go,
you're going to walk away with 2 points, whether you win there or win in OT. So obviously, so it's
because it legitimately could be a huge swing, right? Especially when you take a look at the standings. So if we're fighting for a wild card spot, and let's say that we had the last wild card spot, right? And we're facing a team that is behind us by a point. And we're winning the game by 1 goal. And we're looking at it and go, okay, cool. We're up by 1 point. We win. We now go up by 4 points over them. But if they score and we go to overtime, okay, we win, great. Now we're up by 2 points because they still gain 1 point. We only gained 1 point on them. And, if we lose that, then obviously we do gain a point, but now they're tied with us. You know what I mean? So it really it gives a lot more scenarios that can lay out for hockey too, and a lot more paths forward. And so you're not going to have it to where oh, hey, we're getting to the point where we're on the All-Star break and these teams are already out of it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it feels like. It's an 82 game season, so it's long for NHL. I like that idea. We'll see how it goes, right? A small little tournament like this is not going to give enough momentum, but hopefully they can see the merit of it. I like that idea more. You know what I mean?
Call up Gary Bettman and tell him this is the idea. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. Because another thing that annoys me about the current system is that you'll always see a couple teams every year that don't have a very good record win-loss wise, but because they managed to lose so much in overtime, they're in a playoff spot. It's in a 3-point system, going to overtime that much, let alone losing in overtime that much, will actually lose you ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Being treated the same as a team with a lot of regulation wins, but doesn't take losses to overtime as much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's there to help. It's there to help you when you stumble or you get a bad bounce or something like that, but it's not a crutch to allow you to limp into the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
I'd be all for that.
Yeah, same here. So, anyways, the round robin has been completed. The U.S. of A. went 2-0, and then lost to Sweden. However, that being said, we didn't start a lot of our starters from what I heard, and we also are dealing with quite a few injuries right now. We are already clinched going into it with our dominant win over Team Canada. Canada
3-1, and that was quite a game. And obviously, even the way it started.
3 fights in 9 seconds. 3 fights in 9 seconds. It was so. Definitely it's funny. I watched that game from start to finish, and I can tell you, I thought that game was going to have some intensity to it, but I thought it was going to be like the Olympics, where obviously they don't really allow fighting and all that stuff. But this is an NHL sanction, so they were going to allow fighting and all that. I was not expecting both Tkachuk brothers to drop the gloves right away.
Go at it.
I'm like, dude, hell yeah. And the thing about it too is I came in the broadcast literally right as the puck dropped. And it sounds like the players were like, okay, like we're gonna go out there. This is rivalry, whatever, blah blah blah. But the Canadians booed the national anthem,
Yeah.
and it literally
Yeah.
Matthew and
Fuel.
Bradley Kachuk looked at each other. And goes, which one of you wants to go first? Like,
yeah. Like, okay, that just that just basically struck the match that's gonna blow this thing up.
yeah,
Yeah, I do wonder because they said they had a group text about it between all three of them,
Mhm.
but I do wonder if maybe it's like, okay, we're actually definitely doing this.
Yeah, it's like,
now.
okay, that sealed the deal. Yeah, put the icing on the cake.
yeah, like if it happens, because obviously, like there was a lot of talks as you just pointed out, OJ, because Keith Kachuk, as we love him, Walt, as he's well known around these areas.
Mhm.
Obviously, in the World Cup of Hockey in '96, he got into a fight. I think it was against Canada too, right? I'm pretty
Yeah.
certain, yeah, it was against Canada. And so
Yeah, Claude Lemieux.
that's right. It was Lemieux. That's right. And so they were talking about, hey, we're going to do this as kind of like a tip the hat to our dad or whatever. But I think that kind of solidified it. And it apparently like really rubbed the American people the wrong way. Or not the American people, excuse me, the American players the wrong way. And I get it. You know what I mean? Like that's something different. Like if you're like booing like the Blues or whatever the fuck, like, and you're in Chicago, okay, that kind of comes to the territory. But like I've never been to a game ever where they booed the Canadian national anthem, right? Like I've
Yeah.
never heard anybody boo "O Canada." Here's the funny thing about it. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, but there's a lot of tension right
Political
now.
stuff. I know.
Political
Yeah,
tension
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the U.S. trying to take over Canada as well. So I think that's where some of that comes from. Whereas Canada has always been our friendly little neighbor up above that's never really like been much of a threat to us.
Here's
You
the
know
thing
what I
about that.
Just
I
saying,
will
I'm not
actually,
saying right or wrong. I'm just saying there's some tension there. That's all.
but
Yeah.
here's the thing. So this is where I'm going to go back to. They've always done this. So I've said it for a very long time. Canada is awesome. The Canadian people are very, very cool. But I will never go to them and say that I am an American hockey player because they cannot stand American hockey players. It's just the truth. And here's the thing. So I've rooted for the Boston Bruins one time in my entire life. One time. That was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals against Vancouver, in Vancouver with Boston. That was 2010. I came into that game. I was like, I'm off work. I got good food here. Like at the house to myself, I'm just looking for a good game because I'm a neutral, right? And actually, I was kind of leaning towards Vancouver to win their first, right? And the Sedin brothers, excuse me. I wanted to see them do it, right? I'm like, they can finally do it. Roberto Luongo could win a cup too. And then the national anthem started playing, and I can't tell you how many people, like, it was so loud with all the boos and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, Boston, take it to them. And obviously they kicked the shit out of Vancouver. That's the only time I've ever rooted for the Boston Bruins in my entire life because I was so pissed that was like so unprovoked. They just started like booing. I'm like, dude, I watched Game 5 Game 6, and they weren't doing that in Boston. They didn't care. And it's just that kind of rubbed me the wrong way then too. So it's not like this is something brand new because of what Trump's doing and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's been doing it. I think again, it definitely exacerbated it, right? 100%.
Mhm.
But it definitely like is something that they've done for a while now.
Yeah. I definitely think it's fair to say that nationalism is just as strong in Canada as it is in the U.S. at least.
Mhm.
So, but
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, if they want to boo, they can boo, and I think that the U.S. fans should boo them right back, even though they didn't.
Yeah, in Boston.
Apparently, it was a
Yeah.
light booing, but like I'd have gone hardcore at it. Like, you want to
Well,
boo our
it's gonna be
anthem, we'll
interesting.
boo
Well,
yours.
And
Yeah, it's
also,
gonna. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but also let's face it,
Mhm.
that early aggression also sets the tone as well because we do have such a rivalry anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
than just the fans. I'm talking about just the teams and the rivalry they have.
For sure.
And I think that alone, and I'm sure because obviously, like you were talking about, there was a group text, things were already discussed. It wasn't like this was a spur of the moment thing. This was something that they previously or premeditated ahead of time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. They definitely
Right.
envisioned. They
From
put
what
it on a
I've
vision
read,
board.
it was a premeditated move that we were going to
Yeah.
assert dominance by doing so. So it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily that, but yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious watching JT Miller try to fight Colton Parayko. Like,
And dude, I give it to Miller, but like Parayko is a monster of a dude.
That's a-
So,
yeah,
like-
that's a guy you just don't fight. He's
Yeah.
like Chara, where he's like so big that he doesn't even have to be a good fighter. He just has to get a hold of you, and you just can't touch him anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
And that was a
clearly
big
what
win.
happened.
And that was a big win for us because that snapped their 17-game winning streak in best on best
Mhm.
tournaments. So that was huge for us to go in there and do that, and not only do that, but also, clinch a spot,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
That was a
so
huge, that was a huge pickup for us. Not only do we pick up a spot, it's against a rival, but also the fact that we snapped that 17-game winning streak, and on the best on best tournament, so which is cool.
right.
And the
And
crazy thing
Crosby's
about
straight too.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, 26 games he has dressed for Canada in 26 wins. Not even like an overtime loss or anything like that. He's won 26 times, and now that has been snapped. Thank God.
Yep.
Fuck crybaby Crosby.
Yep. So
I'm telling you, I bet you that the Canadian anthem gets a lot more booze when it's actually
Oh, yeah.
USA versus Canada on Thursday.
well, it's going to
Yeah,
be
'cause it's,
gonna say
it's in
tomorrow's
Boston,
the
too.
game, so in Boston. So yeah.
So
tomorrow
I
night,
bet they'll
7
be
o'clock.
feeling the heat, and
Yeah.
Team USA needs to finish the job. That's all. I
Yes,
gotta
they
say.
do.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
going to be interesting for sure. So that's just
Before we get to that game here, let's talk a little bit about that USA Canada game. We preluded to it, obviously 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the game.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel that game went? I mean, dude, I'm telling you, there were so many massive hits. Like you could I was inspired just sitting there. I thought again this was going to be an expedition or you know what I mean? Like this was just going to be a standard game. Like they're just going to go out there, they're going to kind of like lollipop each other, kind of so to speak. And no, these guys were laying down the hammer, and you could tell by the third period that both teams are really, really feeling it because there were
Very much so.
many heavy ass hits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was very intense, physicality. There was obviously, some strategic prowess as well with them. And obviously those undertones, like we were talking about with, the nations, versus each other and all that other stuff. It just really contributed to a very, intense game. With all that going on, it was a very electric atmosphere. With all that going on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and also the fact that, we had the national pride, on the line, so to speak. And it was obviously very big, not only for us, but for them, of course, as well. So,
Yeah. I was sitting there watching it, like, man, why couldn't hockey just be like this all the time?
All the time? Yeah.
Yeah, dude. You could tell they were just leaving it all out there. I mean,
Yeah.
McAvoy
And
putting
I have
that
to-
huge hit on McDavid, like that's what you need to do.
Yeah, dude.
Every
Go on.
every time, I always get annoyed with it with the Blues when you get one of these like high skilled, talented players coming through, and it's like you just let them do their thing. It's like, no, dude, you gotta lay the boom on them every chance you get. Like,
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah, that was the one time where I'm like, I'm rooting against Vinny. So,
Yeah,
right.
and what do you guys think about Binnington's play so far?
Well, I mean, the Canadians are not very they're not very happy with him, clearly.
Yeah, but
there's-
they're biased. They all hate him anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. I have no problem with him. I think that he played okay. Again, like the
well,
they
and he
said-
only really gave up
Go ahead.
2 technically, because there was an empty netter at the end. So,
Yeah, exactly. The first one was a little bit more. It was kind of a softer goal, but it was a very good.
well, yeah, that was in the
Uh,
final initially. So,
Yeah, and it was a very good like spotted goal. And so like literally Bennington is trying to protect his net, so he's going wider. And I can't remember who scored the goal now.
that was
But
Gunsel.
Gensel scored 2. Yeah,
Yeah, he
Yeah, that's
technically
right,
got
'cause
the
he got the
first one,
empty
and,
netter,
he,
yeah.
and he got the empty netter at the end. Yeah. So, but yeah,
But-
he scored first because he was actually he basically responded to Connor McDavid, because he's the one that initially took the lead. Like, I don't know, it was like 5 minutes in or so, and then Gunsel he got the pass from Eichel and fired a shot right from the left circle there, right, basically right afterwards, and equalized it right away. But yeah,
Yeah,
that
and it
one
was
one Binnington would like to have back probably.
for sure, but it was a
That
good
first one.
like placement, and then it was just one of those things that was like perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
And good
It was,
placement
of course.
with the right
It
timing.
was. 100%.
I think you might be thinking of a different goal because there was one that was perfectly placed below his blocker and above
No,
his
that was the
leg
second
pad.
goal.
That was the
Yeah.
second goal.
You're talking
That
about the
was
one that sneaked
the
under
wrist
his
shot
leg
that-
pad?
But it was 5-hole. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that was
no,
the 5-hole.
he touched it with his left leg pad. I remember seeing that very clearly on a replay. Like it just sneaked under there. Now that one, and I'd have to go back and watch, but I've seen some people say that one's like a partial whiff, so it kind of faked him out a little bit. That first goal he gave up, that went on his leg pad, but you'd probably still like to save that one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, like 100%. I mean, obviously, any
second
goal you
goal-
let up, go on.
Yeah, and the second goal was more like it was a 2-on-1 breakaway, really.
Yes.
And that was the one that, basically that was the wrist shot that basically beat him out on the blocker side.
Yeah, that was like a really great shot.
Yeah.
Like, that was tough. 2-on-1 with speed,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's a tough save. Like I could see a lot of
Mhm.
goalies getting beat by that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is, like, I don't think that Bennington really has played bad. That was what a lot of people said, a softer goal. I didn't really necessarily see it as a softer goal, but again, it is definitely one that he would want to have back. You're facing the best competition in the world, right? You're facing the two most powerful nations when it comes to hockey, with an argument that can be said for Russia, but let's be flat out honest. The talent that U.S. and Canada both have, I think it just dwarfs Russia right now. Russia is the clear-cut third when you take a look at, like, talent-wise, but I just think there's too many young, fast players on the Canadian roster as well as the United States roster. Again, Russia's good, but I think they're like a little bit above Sweden and with Finland and stuff like that nowadays. But I thought, again, the game was awesome. Just the intensity to it. Like, I felt it. It felt like watching an Olympics like gold medal round. That's what it felt like, even though it was just a round robin game. I'm hoping that the finals can have that kind of intensity as well. Time will tell, right? Because obviously we're facing them in the finals, which we kind of feel. Yeah, exactly. I feel like everybody kind of felt that it was going to be, but it's which one of these teams was going to win against the other. You know what I mean? At what point? So, to your point,
we're hoping for it today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the players have made it clear that if they're playing for their country, they're going to go hard. So,
which they need to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I think this is a treat of an event. So,
for sure.
Yep.
So it was great for sure. So, but yeah, I'm looking for the rematch tomorrow, and it's gonna be excited to watch tomorrow night.
For sure. Well, do we have any predictions for the championship game?
Team USA all the way, baby.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like, gotta go for USA.
Say
right?
Austin. Yeah, I was gonna say Matthews and the Chuck brothers and everybody else, and that aggressive style they've got, that fast-paced style. I think that if they're quick on their feet, they'll go out there and be scoring, and it'll be hopefully an aggressive game like we saw the other night. So
yeah, I don't know. This one could swing the other way because the U.S. is going to be without McAvoy, who had a really good game against Canada the first time.
Yeah,
and I believe Canada's getting Cale Makar back. So they'll basically that's a
true.
pretty big swing
on the blue line. So yeah, it's going to be interesting on the defense.
You could argue that the United States team is more balanced up and down, but that is a big swing in talent. So
yeah, big time.
Yeah, that is a good point about Makar. So
yeah, because Cale Makar is one of the better, not one of the better. He's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. I mean, he's good defensively. Yeah. He can obviously move the puck offensively. He's got a scoring attribute or scoring. I mean, he can score, right? I'm looking for more fancy words, but he can put the puck in the back of the net. He can definitely, author a good power play as well. It does change the way that they're able to play. What we need to do is be able to come out and physically, or like either literally or figuratively, but probably both, come out and punch him right in the mouth and show him that we ain't gonna go away. Yeah. This is just gonna be a repeat of last game.
It has to be a physical approach from us to kind of disrupt their, like
Their speed, yeah.
their speed.
Like we're
their
fast,
finesse.
but they're faster than us.
Yeah,
Totally.
their finesse game has to be broken up by our physical approach, basically.
Mhm.
That's really what it all comes down to. But the other part about it is really balancing that aggression though with, with some discipline, because obviously we need to avoid costly penalties. That's the other
Yeah.
part of it as
Yeah.
well. We don't want to get
No.
too ahead of ourselves.
And I'll tell you, as much as I like the 3 fights, I'd rather not take both Kachucks out of the game right off the
Yeah.
bat for 5
Agreed.
minutes.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Especially if we're going to be up against some tough, defense as well. We're going to need a strong offense as well. So we really don't want to have those offense, our offense be too aggressive and wind up in the box. So
Right.
Mhm.
I hope somebody else takes a turn to fight and let them just be physical.
maybe we should have a goalie fight.
I would be down
Shit.
for that.
Oh,
Bennington needs to get in a fight at some point.
He will
That'd be
not.
nice,
I guarantee you that's a
that will
goal
never
he
happen.
I guarantee you that's a goal he has for his career. Like he seems like the kind of dude that's like, yeah, I want to get in a goalie fight someday.
Could you imagine like a goalie fight to cap it all off after all this? That'd be insane.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
Someday he's gonna be like 38. He's gonna be on his way
just
out.
do it. And this is on the national level or international level. Just do it all. International level. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
I tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go on. No, go on, Ed.
Well, it's for me, it's more than just a contest for the title. It's really about national pride and the evolving like dynamics of international hockey. I think that's why we are undoubtedly going to have to go in there with confidence, because the fact that we've already had that like that dub, so to speak, already. I think we have to go in there with confidence and that we can do this, that we have the momentum on our side and we have home field ice advantage as well. I think that could give us a slight edge as well, ultimately. I mean, it's going to be a close battle, don't get me wrong, but I think that with that, with kind of the wind in our sails, so to speak, it's going to help us for sure.
Yeah, it is nice to have the home ice advantage.
Yeah, home ice,
Mm-hmm.
and we have that dub that we're coming off of from them, and I think just winning it for our country in the U.S. is going to be, safe.
I hope those Tkachuk brothers are ready to go.
I mean, I think it, kind of gets your blood going, keeps your heart, racing. Let's go. Let's get out there and win this thing for the U.S.
When you see the players going hard, it's like, okay, like they're going hard, and it makes me more into it, like big time,
That's what, again, like I go back to it. I was sitting there thinking that this game was just going to be like all right, like whatever, they're just doing their thing, and that's just going to be the end of it. But they came out and they just started flying and just dropping bodies. I was like, all right, like this shit is awesome. Like that's what hockey's about.
They're playing like real tight coverage and everything. Like they were really like pressing each other and all that kind of stuff. They were playing really good hockey. Like they were playing as hard as they could, balls to the wall, dude. That was beautiful. So I'm looking forward to seeing another game of that. Higher stakes.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Win or go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All righty, guys. Well, let's go ahead and transition to our second segment here. And we're going to talk a little bit. Actually, we're not even going to talk about anything. We're going to go to our mailbag from our listeners and suggestions.
It's mail time.
It is mail time. We're not doing that.
That's just like the first thing that popped in my head. I'm sorry.
Right. Oh, no. You're 100% right, though. All right. So we're going to talk about this. I got a couple of them, and we'll see how many we get through. So this one's an interesting one, and definitely one that I think is kind of the topic, not necessarily even just in St. Louis, but kind of going around the entire MLB right now. So Manfred just said out today that actually I think it happened yesterday, and ESPN and just reported on today or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but they brought up the Dodgers in this interview. They brought up the Dodgers specifically and being like, do you think it's fair what they're doing, and like how they're able to afford all these players and like all the deferred payments and all that stuff? Like, is it really fair in the competition? Manfred said, well, they're doing everything legal and what is available to them. And essentially that's what he said. And then pretty much was like, next question. Right. So the question is, even with that said, should the MLB step in? Should something be done to make it so MLB doesn't become the Wild Wild West and whoever can afford, the highest bidder wins the gun, right? Essentially. Adam, what's your thoughts here? I know we've talked a little bit about this for before on the podcast, but we'll definitely address this question and maybe even the comments. Adam, your thoughts.
He's not wrong. Absolutely, what they're doing is by the book for sure with these deferred payments. Obviously with Ohtani's $700 million deal and all that. And obviously luxury taxes don't seem to really matter to the Dodgers anymore. They're just like, yeah, we've got tons of money, so whatever. So I definitely have concerns, and I know Manfred has concerns about it. I definitely think that it would be prudent for the MLB to evaluate its financial regulations to really ensure a more level playing field ultimately, because if not, it's going to become so unbalanced. You're going to have these dominant teams and all these other markets are just going to sort of disappear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one's going to really want to go play for them. No one's really going to go and watch them. So you're only going to have a handful of decent teams, and you're not going to have that balance that you really need to have a successful league across the board. And on top of it, you also are fighting an already tough battle with Major League Baseball losing out to other major sports. They're already facing, as we see that they're trying to speed up the game and change some dynamics, changing the base sizes and everything else, and how many times you can throw to. You're just still in for players that are trying to be picked off, those type of aspects. They're trying to increase offense, from increase scores, make it more exciting, but at the same time, while it may be exciting to be a Dodger fan, it's certainly not an exciting time to be
an MLB fan.
An MLB fan if you're not in one of these top markets, which are becoming fewer and farther between. Because the fact is, we don't have the funding like a handful of teams. So I'm concerned if they don't do something, it's going to continue to hurt Major League Baseball. So I think that it is in their best interest to seriously consider salary caps like everyone else has basically put in place. I think that they're going to have to do something about it.
Yeah, so I was going to throw it to you, OJ, but there's definitely some things I want to address off of what you just stated, Adam, because that's exactly it's exactly how I feel. Right. It's going to hurt baseball because if you continue, so let's just say using a hypothetical world here, right? The Athletics were still in Oakland. The talks to moving to Vegas weren't like going on right now, right? Or well, obviously that's finalized, but let's just say like that wasn't
everything was just
going on, right? Well, where is Oakland located? It's pretty much it's in California and it's really close to LA, right? So if you have all this commerce coming to LA, but you got nothing coming over here, you're going to be choked and you're going to eventually want to move anyways.
And it's only going to get worse. I mean, there was no one showing up to Oakland games to begin with. And it's only going to get worse with that happening because those markets are going to dry up.
So I take a look at this. The Angels are not a competitive team. They haven't been a competitive team in the AL West for a very long time now. You lost Shohei Ohtani to literally the team across the fucking street. And what are you going to do now? Like, because the Dodgers are going to destroy that entire fan base. You're not going to make any money off that. I mean, obviously, like they're going to make money off of just being in LA. But the thing about it is, it's just going to like Pittsburgh, for example, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay. These organizations are really, really going to struggle. If Pittsburgh didn't have, I can never pronounce his last name right, Skinks. The pitcher. Skeens, yeah. If they didn't have Paul Skeens right now, they would be in a massive world of hurt when it came to revenue because no one's buying their jerseys. He had the number one selling jersey this past season right in front of Ohtani, which was kind of surprising. But Skeens is like that phenom, right? A guy that can come in and obviously win you some games, but you're only going to see him once every 5 games, regardless of the situation. Like if that's going to help them. Tampa Bay has been decent when it comes to like playoff runs and stuff like that, so that helps them out too. But they don't have big payrolls. They're not in big markets either. So like it just becomes more difficult for those guys to, again, because now literally baseball players are just going to go out there and say, I'm not going to have any loyalty to this city because fuck it. I know that LA can pay me. So either you pay me or I'll go to LA or I'll go to New York. Like, I'm going to go to these places that are going to have these massive fucking, and you know what this reminds me of, actually? Now that I'm thinking of it, and OJ, I think you can definitely, like, attest to this as well, because I feel like we've talked about this before in our youth. This feels like the beginning of BASEketball, the movie by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. It feels like we are getting to the point where players are going to start chasing around, at least in baseball, they're going to chase around a paycheck, not care about the loyalty, and again, they become like the hired guns of the old West, where the highest bidder, they go play for those services, right? And I just think that's what it's going to get used to, or because now, I mean, these players are just making fucking ridiculous contracts too. You know,
and I want to jump in here real quick about that, because this is where I think we have to, while we're talking about salary caps and we're talking about players making a ridiculous amount of money, the other part about it is the fact that you've got the Players Association, and they're going to threaten a strike. I mean, let's be honest. If they go in there and say, we're going to implement a salary cap, they're going to oppose it, and they're going to probably strike, more than likely. So what is the long-term strategy? How are we going to potentially rectify this? I think that's the next question, because yes, it makes the most sense, but how can we feasibly do this and keep things going? I think that, as Manfred's going to be, that's his big task. How can he make this fair without pissing off the association so much that baseball is going to basically be shut down, and we're going to have a 1994 situation all over?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely, that right there is going to be the biggest thing that we're going to have to figure out, because the MLBPA has gotten so much power in the MLB. It's not like a 50-50 partnership anymore. It is like a 70 to 25, if not like an 80 to 85 split right now, where the MLBPA is just dominating anything and everything that the MLB dictates when it comes to rule changes and stuff like that. They have to sign off on all this stuff, which makes sense. But when it comes to, and they don't really care necessarily about base pass, all that stuff, blah, 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 which makes sense. But what they're really caring about is obviously the biggest is situation when it comes to money. And so I just don't see them agreeing to this at all.
There probably isn't. So you're going to have a compromise of some sort, where you're going to have to probably increase, some of the luxury tax, like the redistribution of revenue from like the Dodgers to those lower revenue teams, where they get a higher amount, or potentially like a floor, like minimum payroll threshold that they have to meet, those type of things.
Which sucks, because what that's going to do is it's going to help some of these teams pump a little bit of money into it, but if they don't have the fucking players, then you're just going to give contracts that makes no sense to players that are too old, or again, just not good enough. That's what's going to end up happening.
Right. Yep.
And then what that does is, you take a look, and I don't mean to cut you off, Adam, but what that does is I think it sets the wrong precedent off, because let's just say that you have, average Joe, right? He's literally like average player. And let's just say, for simplicity, right, Ohtani's at 10 million and this guy's at 5 million. And he is the league average, where Ohtani is like at the unattainable at 10 million. If you continue to pump payroll into these areas and say you have to meet this minimal threshold, his base salary goes up to 6, then to 7, then to 8. And all of a sudden now that 10 doesn't mean shit anymore. And then that goes up to 20. That goes up to 30, whatever the fuck it looks like. All you're doing is doing the exact same thing and delaying it off. And these people are going to be making an absorbent amount of money, because then Ohtani, when his contract negotiates come up, he goes, well, average Joe, he's no longer getting paid $5 million. Like when I signed this contract, he's getting paid 7 or 8. So now I get to have an exorbitant amount of jump above that as well. You know what I mean?
You could also,
if you have a cap and floor, it
just
redistributes the. That's all I'm saying. That's what I would do anyway. Cap and floor, something like that's tied to revenue. And
also, in addition to the revenue, why not also, like a lot of companies do, bonuses, or part of your like profit sharing, like I get for work, for example, you get a piece of the pie based upon, the revenues or profits for the team, in essence, like you're a collaborator, and that's like your performance and how the overall thing is going is weighed in on that as well. I'm thinking, I don't know.
Yeah.
Put a little skin in the game. I don't know. I'm just thinking of like
No,
ways
and
that you could
so
do that.
and so here's the thing about it, Adam, because like there have been leagues that have done this before in Europe when it comes to soccer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like if you fall below what they call the relegation line, so essentially like out of the teams that have played in just saying La Liga because it's the best one I know. La Liga did not implement this. This was more towards like the Celtic leagues and stuff like that before, they disbanded and stuff. But essentially, like you have La Liga and then you have La Liga 2, essentially. Like you have obviously different levels. And there's teams that constantly bounce back and forth of it because they're good. They're too good for the second league, which we would call essentially like the minors, even though it's really not the minors. It's like semi-pro. It's kind of like the XFL to the NFL. And I'm trying to explain that to anybody that doesn't understand it, right? Because I think all of us understand what I'm talking about, right?
Sure.
When it comes to the relegations and stuff. Okay. So if you are like, say there's 12 teams, or there's 10 teams in one league, 10 teams in the other, and let's just say for consistency, it's the same 20 teams that are going to be in here. There's no one else coming down below them, so on and so forth. They draw a line between like, okay, here is between 10 and 11. If you can move above that on your like average finish per year, then you get reductions based on your luxury tax and stuff like that. And if you're constantly finishing at number one, then great. Like you get even higher discounts, right? So instead of like maybe a 5%, you get like a 30% or something like that, right? So then the Dodgers could do what they do. However, if they lose, then now they can't afford it. You know what I mean? So you can go and push all your chips in the table and go all in. That's perfectly fine. But if you don't win this pot, if you don't win it, then you're going to have to restructure. And then I think what that's going to allow us to do too is have a distributive talent on a more consistent basis too, and it'll keep things more exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it would really give the smaller teams like Pittsburgh, like Tampa Bay, it would give them another like chance of being able to somehow get those players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that because what that does is it doesn't punish the teams that have consistently the consistently good, right? I don't think that if you're consistently like finishing using this analogy like in third, fourth, and you get like whatever some sort of reduction off it, that means that you can find some good players here and there. You might win some championships and stuff like that. You might be able to stack your roster a little bit better. But it also doesn't punish people for wanting to do the Dodgers route of pushing all in. It's going to punish them, though, if it doesn't work out. But that's fair. You know what I mean? Rather than because if that happens this season and if the Dodgers don't win the World Series this year, it's got to be a disappointment, right?
Well, of course,
it's got to be.
I mean,
not even
they're clear favorites for sure. And
the problem I have with it though is because it would never make sense to like push all in baseball is the problem because it's too random, And so if you're
it's such a long season and there's so many injuries, 110%. I'm with you there.
Yeah. So it's like I don't think people would use that. But
yeah, again, it's just an idea of something that they could potentially build off of, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And find some sort of compromise. But I think that a floor and a ceiling are like step one and step two, what they have to do for MLB to be able to. And there's a problem right now too. Is Adam, you brought this up earlier. You're in a really dangerous time for baseball. You're trying to do all this stuff to speed up the game, to make it more exciting and stuff like that. And if you are, and people are already tired of talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, which get the fuck over it, right? Like I'm done with that shit. If you are that tired of how are you not tired of the Dodgers already, even though they just,
people are,
but they're
people
not,
are pissed
though,
that they
OJ.
keep
That's
signing
the thing.
people.
But they're not. There's not I'm just telling you, man.
Who are you? When you say people, who are you talking about?
I'm just talking about the general public and stuff like that. People are excited to watch the Dodgers. It's fucking crazy to me. There are people. There are quite a few people, at least on my Facebook feed, that are. I'm not even joking. They're no longer in St. Louis. I mean, they're like, oh, I'm a Cardinals fan, but I am not going to root for this team anymore. I'm going to be an LA Dodgers fan. I'm like,
Well, of course they want to be
like,
part of the winning crowd.
and
because
fucking welcome to St. Louis because we're spoiled
well,
as shit. But
well, of course. But the
anyways.
fact is that for those Cardinal fans that were loyal all this time, welcome to the Cardinals of the '90s all over again.
Yeah, at least we had Mark McGwire though at the time. You know what I mean?
did,
That's the thing.
but that was late '90s. I'm talking like early '90s. That were
early
abysmal.
'90s was
abysmal.
You still had the wizard that you could watch at shortstop. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay,
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
But I'm just saying, dude, it was not a fun time to be a Cardinal fan in general.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, or if you want to put it in terms of Chiefs, pre-Mahomes era. Okay,
trust me, I get it. Yeah, like I watched them suck when Dexter McClellan was there, and I'm like, how do you start 9-0 and not make the playoffs? Like,
right.
What the fuck? How did you fall apart that bad? Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah.
But was there anything else that you wanted to add into that, OJ?
Oh, well, just how stupid I think the idea of a soft cap even is. Like, I'm so pissed that ever got passed by the Players Association.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because literally it doesn't function as a cap to like the few richest teams in the league. It's like a minor consideration to them. And for most teams in the league, it's a hard cap because you can't afford to go over it. It just further divides the super rich teams from the less rich teams, you know? So
exactly.
It does nothing for anybody, really, except give the owners something to point to say, well, we can't spend that much, you know? That's how it helps them, but it hurts the integrity of the game for sure, or at least parity, I guess you'd say. It makes everything a lot less interesting. So, yeah, and the revenue disparity has really gotten so out of hand with the Dodgers and shit compared to almost every other team in the league. It's just it's absurd how much more money they make than everybody else just because they're in LA. And so what do we don't want to turn into the EPL where Manchester United just destroys everybody because they're from a big city, right? So if we don't want that, then we absolutely need intervention. And like you said, step one probably should be hard and soft cap.
Yeah.
Then or
Makes
not hard. You know what I mean?
I know.
Yeah, no. Yeah, ceiling the floor. Yeah. And like the thing about it is, you have to be. Like you have to hold the teams accountable to that. There's no wiggle room. There's none of they can move things off for in 10 years.
They need to be hard,
or like in hockey. You know, like all these bullshit. Yeah,
exactly. Because because what they have in the MLB or in the NBA, doesn't make any sense. You have a soft cap, you have a hard cap. You have a luxury tax apron number 1. You have a luxury cap apron number 2. And they've installed all this because of just the disparity that they have on salaries between like legendary players like Steph Curry, LeBron James, stuff like that. And your good players, right? There's a monstrous difference between the two. So they're like, oh, well then like this is the max salary. Like it's going to put you, I mean, I love the Warriors and stuff like that, but like they're trying to get under the luxury tax second luxury apron or whatever the hell, but they've been over the salary cap forever, and it makes it hard for a fan to understand what the hell's going on. And it's like, oh, they signed Jimmy Butler. Well, how the fuck did they sign Jimmy Butler? You know what I mean? So it's like it doesn't make any sense. And I think that like while it's cool as a fan, it's also a little bit different with a 5-on-5 team, and like you have 2 players, that are just gonna, if you have the big threes all the time and stuff, that's fine. It's also a completely different type of game. You know what I mean? Compared to MLB, which is long, grueling season and stuff like that, when you're trying to like go out and you have the Dodgers that have the best fucking player at each position. Like, come on now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's but that's almost how it feels like it is because the Dodgers make so much extra money.
Yeah.
So, like they're basically getting into the super team era of MLB, but nobody else can afford to do it. Or Yankees and the Cubs probably could afford to do it. And that's probably about it.
Yeah, and that's like if the Cubs get like some serious backing, right?
Well, they make stupid money too. It's just their owners refuse to spend it. Like,
well, that's a good point too. They much rather pocket the profit. Yeah.
Like Yankees and Cubs fans ought to be really mad that their owners aren't spending or aren't even trying to like get guys. Like they're just letting LA go in and just buy all these guys. They could have them, but whatever.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's get to another question here. And let's do a quick one for this one. If we're going to trade Arenado, which is definitely expected that we're going to be trading Nolan Arenado at some point, right? What do we believe that we can get for Arenado?
Well, this kind of ties back into the last discussion a bit because if you had the floor ceiling setup, then you'd have teams wanting to actually be at the floor. And Arenado is a good player, but nobody wants to trade for him without at least significant salary retained. And even though he's still good, but it's just because of how much he's making. So he's no longer one of those top elite talents. So now just nobody wants him. So it just creates these really weird scenarios where you have perfectly good players that just nobody wants. It's just the wrong incentive structure, But I think that the Cardinals would have to retain a good chunk of his salary. And if they did, they could probably get some reasonable kind of prospect, like maybe a 45 FV kind of prospect, but they'll probably never turn into anything. I don't know. It's going to be light, I think, whatever it is.
And obviously he's putting up, his blockers on some of these moves as well. It's going to be very tough to find a trade partner and for it to make sense and without us footing the majority of the bill. I mean, let's face it. Do we want to be the Rockies in this situation all over again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Not really.
Well, yeah. I mean, the other thing is if you could flip it around, if he has a really good first half and come trade deadline, you're still looking to trade players away. Maybe then some team will have had an injury or something like that. Somebody competing, and you might actually be able to get something reasonable back, or something a little more palatable, right?
Makes sense. But yeah, he'll be with the Cardinals for the foreseeable future, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, let's move off that one then here, and let's talk about should the Blues move on from Jordan Binnington?
No.
Yeah, I don't. Right, that's what. I'm tired of people saying that Hofer is the answer at goal. He is he is at Binnington's level at his best and at his worst. He's a starter in the AHL. You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels like when you look at Hofer. There are times where he is like, okay, cool, that was a solid outing. But it's not like he's knocking your block up. It's not what Binnington was when he came in and replaced Jake Allen. You know what I mean? Correct. All of a sudden, you saw a completely different type of gear.
Yeah, transition to the NHL is a significant step, and having to really, and relying solely on that unproven talent really carries a lot of risk, in my opinion. I just don't.
And I don't even think he's unproven at this point. He's proven himself, Hofer, as maybe a backup goalie, but not a guy that's going to come in and replace Binnington.
A backup. That's it. You cannot take Benny out of the situation right now. He provides stability and mentorship for those for those guys. He's got to be your starter. He's got to be in. I mean, I'm sorry, but he's going to be.
He's also a Stanley Cup winner, and that has to count for something. I get it that they haven't been Stanley Cup worthy in 5 years. I totally get that. Okay,
but that's not all on him.
Exactly. He's 24 too. He's a young
Hofer.
Hofer is a young goalie still too, and
correct.
Goalies mature later. So the thing is, could he he's on his way up? Binnington's on his decline at this point, probably because he's 33.
No, he's
30. No, he's not that old. He's I think he's on 31. I
he's 31.
I think he just broke 30. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe he's starting his decline, but I don't know. Some of the goalies that we've seen seem to age pretty well. So I don't know. But one of Binnington's attributes that I don't see in many other goalies is how well he does playing the puck behind the net.
Yes.
He does a phenomenal job of that, and he can when he's on his game, he does a really good job of limiting the forecheck of the other team that way, unless they can keep the puck away from it. So he's actually a problem the other team has to worry about in that regard. They can't just dump the puck over and go get it.
But what I feel like that gets lost in stats, right? It's one of those things that we see that they don't go down in stats, but it's all about effort plays and stuff like that. We see that with defensemen when people continue to just absolutely, put Colton Parayko in the in the crosshairs and on the hot seat because they want to get rid of him because they feel like he should be hitting more, or he's like, they got a massive shot, he's putting shots on net, he needs to be scoring. That's not how he's like. Just because he is not doing what you believe to be good doesn't mean he's not a good defenseman. There's a reason why he has been here for as long as he's been here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
he's a phenomenal shutdown defenseman for the most part.
Correct.
And the fact of the matter is, I'm looking here, his contract goes through 26-27 season. He'll be 33 whenever he becomes, an unrestricted free agent at that point. I think that with that, it provides really a good window to use him, as that mentor for the future. For sure. It's all about strategic timing, and ensuring that there is a transition that occurs or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's a trade that needs to happen right now. I think he's the right guy.
Yeah. What are you going to get for him? That's the other thing is like, you're going to move on from him. What are you going to get for Jordan Binnington right
You're
now?
not. And you're not. And that's the problem. And that's
I don't know, with the cap exploding, because Binnington's on isn't he on like a 6.5 something million?
Correct. Yeah.
I think it's like an average annual of like 6 million or so, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty good with the cap going up the way it is. Like right here, I'm seeing
listen.
4.25.
No.
Yeah.
What I mean by that, it's not like I believe you can get something for Jordan Binnington, but it's not like you're going to be able to go out there and you're going to have Connor Bedard. It's not the trade that you would make is not going to change your franchise significantly. You know what I mean? If anything, it'll do the opposite.
Yeah.
I think Binnington's a good goalie, but
I agree.
And his contract is probably a good value now with the cap jumping up the way it is. And I think he's going to continue to prove to you. But he hasn't been as good as he's been in the past this season either. Like, we've seen him in the past just take over playoff series and stuff like that. And I thought he might do that in this tournament, but he hasn't done that yet. He's looked very mortal. Well, yeah, he's given up. He hasn't had terrible games. Like, I agree. I think he's played pretty well, but he's also, I don't know. He's also let up at least one softie every game too. When he's locked in, he's basically just can dominate all on his own,
And let's face it. And also from looking at it, is he open to a change as well?
Yeah. He doesn't. But I just question if. I hope he's not on the downside. Is it just, him going through a spell where he's not at the top of his game, or is he like actually on a downside now,
Well, I'm looking here. He signed in through 26. So for the next 2 seasons, and there's an 18-team no trade list for this season. So that really nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, I'll just say, knowing what I know about how goalies have seemed to age in the modern era, especially when you have like a 1A, 1B type setup, like look at Fleury and stuff. Like, I think Binnington ought to be able to be pretty damn good for the rest of his contract with us, at least. Maybe you just need to start using Hofer more. But that's the other thing. I don't think Hofer's proven he's ready to take on more of a workload yet. He's had a pretty rough spell himself. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I feel too, though. I mean, like with Binnington, I don't feel like there's a goalie out there that you feel that you're going to be able to get and it's going to turn everything around. I think that people are so quick to just point fingers and try to like move on from the past and stuff like that, and it's just not fair, right? It's just not. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and get to next question. I only have 2 more. I'm looking at time. Yeah, we're okay. Okay. So we kind of talked about this, but I'm actually very curious on what your guys' opinions of this. I've talked about this for a long time before with different people. But should American sports adopt a Euro-style form of leagues where they do have relegation? I kind of already described this a little bit, but should major sports get to that? And should they get to where there's relegation, stuff like that? It will help, obviously, with ratings. It would help make sure that owners are spending money on their team. It adds a different interest and makes games that are meaningless all of a sudden mean something, right? So there are some positives to that. My thought process, and before I throw it over to you guys, is there's only a few leagues that this would work with, right? MLB, I don't see you being able to do that. You need a bigger field. You need quite a few players. I just don't see, and there's not as much revenue coming in as they would like. So I don't see that working out for them. NBA, I could definitely see it, right? I mean, you only have 30 teams right now in the NBA, but it's a very small venue that you can have. You have a total of 13 guys. You can definitely do this. Like you can, if you opened it up right now, St. Louis would definitely be getting a team, other cities like Omaha, Nebraska, and stuff like that, where basketball is big, they would get them into. It would allow those markets to be able to get them because there's a lot of places that are like St. Louis or even Kansas City, for example. I mean, they have a Sprint Center out there that they're not using, right? I mean, it's just
Right.
like their concert hall. But when I went there for a preseason game when I was working for the Blues, it was a pretty cool atmosphere. There was a lot of people that were excited to have their hockey game there. And obviously it could be, retrofitted to do whatever you want, right? There's a lot of different cities that you could possibly do that with. The NFL is kind of like that too. And even though there's more players, there's a lot, like you would have a lower talent field per se, because you're allowing a lot more like scruffs like that are playing the XFL and stuff to be able to join. But you have so many kids that are coming out of college that aren't getting into the NFL, aren't getting into the XFL. It would give those guys a chance. And then obviously you already have some of the XFL stuff, right? And that's been proven that it could work. So could the XFL be the relegation league for the NFL? They're constantly talking about expansion. I don't see how you expand from 32 teams because it's just too perfect, right? So, I mean, there are a few leagues that could potentially work with because of money, because of the lower overhead and stuff like that. The NHL definitely wouldn't have enough interest for it. MLS should already be at that, but again, there's not enough teams just yet. So I definitely think that they could work. It's would they want to? Like would these leagues want to? Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I don't think so. This is just my opinion, just because I know that how American sports are really built on stable franchises and big in time investments. And I just think that that's going to cause a big mess and a lot of instability in things. And also, let's face it, from a fan perspective, we're deeply connected to our local teams. And I mean, maybe it works in a European perspective because they're used to that. But as an American fan, and that I just don't think that would set very well with very many people here in America. That's just my opinion. But the fact of like being, relegated is going to be very controversial in this country. I don't know how it would work. Maybe in MLS, there's more room to play with that concept because, there's that tiered structure with how the leagues, work with like the USL and stuff like you were talking about, have the that new Division 1 league starting in a couple of years. It might open the door for maybe promotion or relegation or whatever, and get maybe the smaller markets a shot. But I just don't see. I mean, maybe. I just don't see that could really go over too well. Just because there's so much money that goes into these things, there's such a big investment, and I just have a hard time seeing how the owners are going to sign off on something like that. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's also more owners that are sharing the overall revenue too.
Correct.
And like,
Correct.
they're not going to want to hurt their, that's a good point. And that's what I said.
Yes.
There's a few that where it would kind of make sense, but you are definitely going to be taking, as an ownership group, that is current ownership group, you're definitely going to be taking a little bit of a hit revenue wise to hopefully earn profits on the back end. Right. So it is a risk reward. The NBA, I think, could definitely, I think that would be like, to me, that is the perfect, like if one league was going to do it, that would be it. There's an interest already. There's already the G League. It's low overhead. You don't need giant, 100,000 people stadiums that you're trying to pack in once every week on a Sunday, right? You're not needing to do that. There's multiple games. You can get away with 20, 30,000, seated stadiums, much smaller of a footprint. And, again, it will allow then too more local areas, as you said, to get involved with those teams as well, and potentially have better revenue, different advertising streams and stuff like that as well. I think it could work with the NBA. Other ones, I just don't see it happening, right? Like the NFL is rich enough to do it, 110%. They are rich enough to do it, but those owners are way too fucking greedy, as we've already seen with Kroenke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
I'll say also that, I mean, so I'm not wrong, right? Like in all these European leagues where they have pro and relegation and stuff, is the team's actually like connected to the city, right? Like the owners can't move it, shit like that. It's a property of the city to some extent, isn't it?
No, the
So
owner
they
is the
can
owner.
move them.
They could move it. Yeah, they could.
So
They
somebody
just
could
never
move the
would.
Tottenham Hotspurs, is what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was different, but never mind then. But I
No.
still do
Yeah.
think that people in the US already don't watch the MLS partially because it's not the best in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
if he's not the top league in the world, what are he even doing? Like
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I mean that's fair, right? That's 100% fair. But again, I think but then like I take a look at that on the European side when they have so much pride in their cities and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like there are times
yeah,
like Leicester City, for example. I mean, obviously this was one of the greatest stories that was ever happened in professional sports for being predicted to finish second to last in the league and being relegated again. They went on and won oh my god oh my gosh, the Premier League. You know, they won it
yeah,
all, right? And people in Leicester City, like I started watching Leicester City, you know, when I saw that run. I was like, you know what, I don't have it. I have La Liga, I have Real Madrid, I watch that, but I don't have a team to watch in the Premier. And I'm like, every team I look over there I cannot stand. So this is the lovable underdog. I'm going to go ahead and attach myself to them, and I've watched quite a few of their games. So it allows for good stories like that. But again, you're talking about, there's a reason why it's such a good story, because it does not happen, right? But
right.
like the city would get so attached to that, they have that pride, then that team would never leave either. But let's be honest, we had that with the St. Louis Rams, and they got moved anyways. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Owners are greedy assholes. But
Yep. I think that's the moral of the
Yeah,
story here, right?
Well, that's why I
I,
think that this is not going to be viable, because that there's so much investment and the money
well,
that goes on with things.
I
Yeah.
have two notes for that. Is one, I think it would work the best in college sports because then people absolutely would still watch their team play even if they got relegated. I know that for a fact because people are really loyal to their college teams. So that would be the place I'd do it because it works the best. Because especially in like in every sport, there's so many teams in Division One, and you can't all play each other. So you have some subjective way of trying to determine who's number one and all that. You know, there's biases baked into it. So you could be much more objective about it by creating a whole table and allowing promotion and relegation between the levels and let the teams sort it out themselves, you know? I think that would be amazing for college sports. I'm sure there's some problems, but I think that would be the best way to do it.
Right.
In college. And then the other thing I was going to say too is that the USL is actually doing a pro relegation thing starting, I don't know when, but I saw that they are going to start doing that. So they're going to become a Division One, according to like FIFA or whatever, I guess, in the US. The USL, like, I guess United Soccer League, they're kind of like a competitor to MLS still, which is crazy because it's so weird having like two actual separate leagues that are competing for the same eyeballs in this country, you know. But yeah, so we'll get to see soon a little bit of an experiment with that. See how those USL teams do.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? So again, it's an interesting thought process. I just think that there's way too many like traditions and stuff that outstand in American sports and stuff like that, right? They've been successful for over 100 years. You're not going to be changing that out anytime soon, I don't think, right?
Right.
So.
Agreed.
All right, last one here because we got a little bit of time for it. What is your favorite memory at Busch Stadium, Enterprise Center, and at the Dome? So, like, three separate memories, I guess. Interesting thought process.
Let's see. So I didn't actually go to many Rams games because they were always pretty expensive, and at least when they're good. I do remember going to a Saints game when they're bad, but probably the one I remember, the time I remember the best, which is going to tell you how sad this is. It was in the last season. Me and my dad and my brother went to a couple games because we thought it would probably be the last season in St. Louis. And there, I just remember Case Keenum throwing I think it was during like the Color Rush thing where it was like ketchup versus mustard. If you remember that game.
Oh God, yeah.
And
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like all yellow, and I think they were playing the 49ers. They were in like all red, something like that. And I just remember Case Keenum throwing like some like great pass deep down the sideline to like Chris Givens or somebody like that. Just two absolute nobodies, but it was a really good play, and so that was fun to watch. So that's the Dome for me, probably.
Yeah, let's go through. Yeah,
What about the other two?
hold on. Yeah, let's go through the Dome, and then we'll go to somewhere else.
Okay.
Right. So, Adam, what's your
so you're
favorite
gonna go
memory
to
of
the
the Dome?
Number
Yeah.
one for the Dome for me was, I was going to say, the XFL game in 2020, that very first game where we actually had football back in St. Louis. And I think we were playing like New York, and the Dome was like so electric, and St. Louis was so excited to have football back. And it was a really awesome time, and it got me so excited about having football back again and being a part of that in part of the city, because I felt like that was something we lost, and I was so excited to have it back again.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning too. That was a really cool game. And it got me really excited and pumped up about it for sure.
I kind of missed that first iteration of the Battlehawks, like before the league shut down the first time.
Prior COVID, right before COVID. Dude,
Yeah.
that was so electric and so much fun, man.
I thought they had a good coach. They had a bunch of good
Everything
players.
was going so well. I was looking forward to it. Like everybody, it was just a lot of fun. Man,
Yeah.
it felt like everything was going our way, and then COVID happened, and then it all shut down. Sucked.
Just more proof that Kroenke's behind the coronavirus.
Damn it. And everybody's screaming, Kroenke sucks, and it's on the national broadcast, and we're like, and everyone hears it. It was just so, oh man, it was so
he
good.
knew everyone was about to
hear
just destroy it on TV.
It was awesome, dude.
It was electric. It was just,
so
and the funny thing about that is, Adam, you just stirred up a lot of memories, because I was sitting there I was going to go to a different game when the Rams were there. And I'm like, no, that game, I think, is definitely my favorite memory in the Dome. That's at least sports related.
Yeah.
Because I went to a couple Comic-Cons.
Of course, but I'm going sports since we're doing
Of course, yeah. Right. That's what I mean. So it was that was awesome. Like the fact that you had like people in the upper deck. Remember that?
Yeah.
So it's just like they're only expecting to like sell a certain amount, and they're selling tickets. Oh my God! Like what was it? Like not 70,000, I don't think, but it was something
ridiculous
like
amount
40,
of people.
50,000 people screaming Kroenke sucks to the top of their lungs. I'm like, oh my God! Like you felt like a city was united there. It was awesome.
It was incredible.
Absolutely was.
We were all just screaming at the top of our. I mean, it was like 140. It was like the 142.2, whatever the record is there. It felt like we were breaking that record in St. Louis.
Yeah, 100%.
It was electric, man. That was such an awesome game. Yeah. I'll never forget that. A lot of good. That was a great memory for sure. I had there.
Okay, so then Adam, I'll let you go here, and I'll let you choose. Do you want to go Busch or Enterprise next?
Enterprise.
All right, go Enterprise, and then I'll
Enterprise.
Go on, yeah.
For me, was not even necessarily the game, but the fact that I got to be there, banner raising night, to see our first Stanley Cup, and only, unfortunately to this point, go up into the rafters, was so emotionally just cool to finally see those guys like actually hoist the cup on home ice and go to see the banner go up and sing Gloria one last time. God, that felt so good. Man, that felt so good, especially considering all the bullshit we went through. That drama of that long ass series. We weren't even home for it. It just felt like it was so real in any way. It was like the final, like in like the capstone, so to speak, that just like sealed it all off and just made me like that whole run, like as much as I didn't want that summer to end, it it really gave me such amazing memories that I'll always remember for sure, and will always remember every time I look over, look up in the rafters now. Anyway,
OJ, what about you? What's your favorite at Enterprise?
Well, let's see. I think these might be. I think it all might have been the same game, but I don't remember. I just remember so clearly Chris Stewart having like a sick end-to-end goal against. I'm pretty sure the Blackhawks. I think the Blues wound up losing that game anyway, but it was a good game. This is back when the Blackhawks were good, and before the Blues won the Cup. So that's how long ago that's been. I'm just thinking the ones that come to mind first, right? So obviously, stuck with me. But yeah, that was like this sick play, and I'm sitting there like, man, why does he just do that all the time?
Right, exactly.
Like Chris Stewart should never have been just a fourth liner. Like I'm convinced he didn't put that much effort into what he was doing or something.
He definitely was one of those guys that like I think just didn't want to hone his craft when he got to a certain level because he thought he was that dude. But it's like, dude, if you would have put just that work into it, you could have been something special. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, because he had size, he had skill. It's just like, but he was. I think so many games he just would disappear.
I think that he is the hard work. I think is the difference between him and Keith Tkachuk. Honestly,
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, he just took it easy and collected an NHL paycheck for many years on the fourth line role. But yeah, so anyway, there's that one. I remember screaming about ending Kane now or something like that. Because,
right.
He just I don't know if he had just beat up the cabbie or what, but like. I remember that something was going fresh down in my mind. Yeah. Pre-rape accusation, but definitely was like post being convicted for beating up a 60-year-old cab driver over spare change. With the help of his cousin at that.
Or a cousin, that's right. Yeah.
With the help of his cousin at that. Can you believe that?
Yeah, dude.
How do people behave that way?
It's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So I obviously have a lot of really good memories at Enterprise, working there. A lot of good games that I've seen over the years. But I gotta tell you that my favorite, it wasn't even Enterprise at the time. It was the Kiel Center. But seeing Wayne Gretzky in a Blue Note, that was pretty special. I was 5 years old, and I remember it very, very clearly because, again, I was just starting to play hockey, was starting to get into it and all that stuff. I remember watching him as on TV, and then when they signed him or whatever, I remember my parents were so excited, and I remember going there and seeing him. That was pretty special. That was a very special moment for me. I got to see 2 of his games, which is saying something because he obviously did not play here very long, but that was pretty cool. So I think that's a cool memory there. And then I'll go to the last one, which is talking about Bush. You can't beat Game 6 of 2011, man. Like, come on, you cannot beat that. I was there for several like cool games. We were there for Adam and I were there for Albert Pujols' last home run as a Cardinal. Or like at Bush, or so
his career, his last home run and last home game of his Cardinal career.
703. Yeah.
Same with Yachty as well.
Yeah, we were there for that. We were there for when they tied the battery record, Wainwright and
Molina. Yeah, that was cool too.
We were there for 696. The last one he hit before he hit 700. Yeah, we were there for a lot. Yeah, we were there for a lot of
great games.
Really great games.
And that was an incredible season. Like a lot of, even though it didn't end well for us at the end of the season, so to speak, it was still had a lot of great memories for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I was also there, and you guys might remember this, where Jim Emmons against the Astros in the playoffs. And I think it was the NLCS. And he hits that home run and drops the bat and goes, yes, pumps both of his fists because he knew that he hit it and won the game. I was there at the game. Like,
that was an incredible game.
God, my dad took me and my buddy Jake He took us out of school, said that like, hey, that we had like some sort of like I don't know, family thing, and this was right after recess. So you just got done with lunch and recess. It was on the back end of like a really long day. We got to leave, and my dad took us to Bush, even though the game started at like 7, so we can tailgate. And it was just the three of us like down there tailgating with his friends and stuff like that. It was just a really good day. But Game 6 of 2011, when David Freese hits the home run and the triple, you can't beat that. It's one of the greatest games that has ever been played in history. I can't beat that. Can't top that.
Yeah. For me, it would be Game 5, World Series 2006. I actually got to see the Cardinals win. So while that is incredible to see or to see obviously the game that you went and seen, which I would love to see it. I was at least happy that I got to see a World Series win, especially considering the circumstances that I originally had Game 4 tickets. Game 4 was rained out. I was extremely bummed out. I was sitting down there at Busch for a good couple hours, drove all the way down there. My dad and I to sit in the freaking rain, to get rained out. And then the fact that Game 5 ticket holders ended up going to Game 4. And I was like, wait a minute. We could actually go to the potentially a series winning game. And sure enough, and it was a beautiful evening. Jeff Weaver on the mound. He pitched a great, strong 8 innings, only allowed like just 1 earned run. And then Waino secured the save, closing it out. And man, did we go crazy. And it was great. I mean, that was the first World Series that we had won in my life. We had been to the World Series prior, Josh, as you so sadly remember, in 2004.
Yeah, 2004. That was the greatest team that has ever been assembled by the Cardinals that never won it.
But in 2006, on top of it, it was the fact that we only won 83 regular season games. We barely squeaked in into the wild card. And I was at the last game of the regular season thinking that was the last game I was going to go to of that season in 2006. And lo and behold, the next game I was going to was Game 5 of the World Series in 2006, watching.
What is it with this city and like these Cinderella stories that end up winning us championships? 2006, 2011 for the Cardinals. You have the Blues in 2019, finishing from the cellar and winning it all. You have Kurt Warner, who's fucking bagging groceries, that's going to come in and be a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, he's just going to, hey, we need you to step in,
What the hell is with the city and that shit? That's the whole,
And it makes it even that much more magical when it happens, for sure. So, that's by far the greatest memory that I will always treasure, for sure. But there's been so many great memories. I mean, I grew up at that stadium. I used to go there literally every month throughout my entire childhood. The old Busch, the new Busch, sadly I don't get to go there nearly as much, and it is what it is. But we were going quite a bit there for a while. But,
definitely. But ticket prices are way too high for the product that they have.
Ticket prices for the product are just not worth it right now. Just not.
Yeah,
just not. Sadly. But anyway,
OJ, what's your favorite memory at Busch?
Let's see. That's a tough one. So. I think I was there for like a triple play, but I think it was one that was done to the Cardinals. I'm pretty sure it was against like Atlanta or something. It was a regular season game. And it was one of those weird ones where like the second baseman caught it, stepped on the bag, and then tagged a guy. So I'm pretty sure it was like an unassisted triple.
Damn.
Yeah, which is like insane. So I remember that. I don't know if it's my favorite memory, but I mean, it's pretty memorable.
Definitely one that stands out. Yeah, like that's there's 2 things that I remember about youth baseball that I really am proud of. I had an unassisted triple play at third base, caught a line drive, stepped in the bag, and the dude didn't see me catch the ball running from second, and I tagged him. And then I also pitched a no-hitter. By the way, we lost that no-hitter. It was fucking ridiculous. We lost 2-0. So anyways, the baseball teams I played for were just terrible. But anyways, you never forget a triple play. That is a very, very that's a good one. That's like Adam and I seeing the immaculate inning. You know what I mean?
Thank you. That's pretty cool. That's the reason why I went, because that literally was the one other thing I wanted to bring up. That was ironically in that game that you mentioned with Pujols, like this, it was like 698 or
Yeah.
whatever. That was the
696 or whatever. Yeah.
696, whatever, was
Yeah.
Ryan Helsley's immaculate inning, and we didn't even realize it at the time, like that what we had just witnessed that had happened only
Yeah.
one other time in Cardinal history.
Yeah, like 27 times total. Like
Yeah, in
fucking
all
ridiculous.
of baseball, like the fact that I seen that and I didn't even realize what I just seen, which how incredibly odd that was.
It really was a magical season. We went to a lot of games. We saw a lot of really good baseball.
Yeah, that's what I'm glad you brought, because I literally was like, that's why I was like, oh, I got to remember bringing that up too. Anyway.
Yeah,
that one too. So many good memories, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
got you out to the ballpark again this year, huh?
Well,
we will be going to see Savannah Bananas, baby.
Let's go Bananas. Yeah, I was going to say,
geez.
we all got tickets to the Bananas.
Like, have you actually watched it, OJ?
Not actual full games, no.
You need to, dude. Like, they have like a whole thing. I'm just telling you, dude. It's like a circus act. You don't take it as seriously as you do for MLB, but it is so entertaining. And the thing about it is, like, at the end of the day, they are playing for like bonuses and stuff like that. So like they clown around, they'll try some stuff, but when it gets to like that time limit or the ninth inning, they like don't fuck around anymore, and they actually have some talent. Like, these guys are like past the shit.
They definitely have some talent. I mean, for sure. Like, if they were really good, they'd be affiliated somewhere, though. Really, but
yeah.
They're definitely far better than your average college baseball player, probably. You know.
Yep. All right, guys. Let's head. Yeah. Probably the only one I'll go to this year. We'll see. All right. Let's head to our sign-offs here. Adam, would you like to tell the good listeners how they can interact with the shows and ask us more questions to put in our mailbag?
Love hearing from you as always. So keep sending us those questions. Check us out, facebook.com/the hometown losers, LOUSERS, or check us out on x.com/hometown losers. Post there, send us messages, share, like, tell your friends. Keeping questions going. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. OJ, want to hit the listeners up with what the game of the week is?
Yeah, so we'll go with St. Louis City SC's first regular season match, which is on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time versus Colorado, who is in the CONCACAF tournament right now. So just so you know. But that should be a fun one to watch.
That should be, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're St. Louis is an intriguing team this year, so that'll be a fun one to look into.
All right. Well, I'm getting ready to toss it over now to you, Josh, for another fun week of the
Stat Blast.
Over to you, Josh.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. So I got one here for us. There has been, in NFL history, 14 different 4-interception games. Now, this is the defender intercepting the ball 4 times, right? Which is pretty insane to do. There's been 14 of those games. This has only been performed twice by one player, the guy named Jerry Norton. Jerry Norton is in the Hall of Fame. But did you, and believe it or not, those years that he did it for were for the St. Louis Cardinals. He did in 1960, and then he repeated the feat in 1961, which is kind of crazy. He literally did it, I think, when I looked into it, he did it both of those games within a calendar year of each other, which is absurd, right? But he's actually not even known for that. He was really good safety, led the league in interceptions, I think, one year in 1960 when he was all pro, but he was kind of like a good, like, he played all over the place, free safety, played a cornerback, then he played strong safety for a long time where he made the Pro Bowl 5 years in a row. But he was really known for his punting. He was the starting punter for the Cardinals of St. Louis before that. And
he was the punter? And
He
he
was
was
the punter.
like,
Jeez.
well, I was
Well,
gonna say
yeah,
if he was the punter, he must have been like, I'm trying to think, what else was he playing other than he was a punter? What is he?
Safety.
He was
I mean,
playing
why-
safety, yeah.
Why have
Yeah.
a separate guy just to punt every once in a while, right? Like, you
Yeah,
could just throw
exactly.
anybody back there. To do
But no, this guy apparently got drafted as a punter, and that was his thing. And then they brought him in on like defensive back, and then he ended up, becoming a pretty damn good strong safety.
That's crazy.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy to me that he had 2 different games where he picked the ball up 4 times. That's absurd.
Yeah, especially in the 60s
alone
when
what-
people weren't
Yeah.
throwing the ball that much. That's not too
Exactly.
far removed from the old man football, the elephant football. Just line them up and run it.
It's crazy. Like, yeah, I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
But,
Hmm.
All right, guys. Well, as always, it's good talking to you. Definitely will bring it next time, and hopefully bring home a win on the 4 Nations. Go Team USA. Hopefully,
Yes, sir.
City can start off really well here, and hopefully the Blues can maybe turn a corner. Who knows, right? Okay. But as I said before, it's good talking to you guys. And until next time, thank you very much to the listeners. We will catch you here on the Hometown Losers podcast. Have a great night, everybody.
This is OJ, and I wanted to thank you guys for listening to the equivalent of 3 dudes sitting at a bar talking about sports. We'll catch you next week on the Hometown Losers.